Okay. Birdie and Leona loved Claire de Lune, so let's start with that. On behalf of Leona Ikenberry's family, I want to thank you for taking time today to celebrate her most amazing life. She lived her life by throwing herself into the passions that sustained her and into the communities that she found beloved. So we are here today to celebrate her life and her legacy. And each of us in this room brings our own memories with us. They are welcome here as we gather to thank God for creating this woman and creating her so good. Will you pray with me? O God of love and light, of joy and newness, of blessing and peace, be present with us in this time as we celebrate the life of Leona Ikenberry, a woman who lived her life in such a way that she left a trail of blessedness behind her. Comfort us in the places that we feel this loss most keenly. Celebrate with us the joy that she so readily bestowed on others. Embrace us as we strive to carry on the legacy she leaves us. This is our prayer, and we pray it in a spirit of love. Amen. You are going to hear from 4 different members of Leona's family. They will introduce themselves and tell you some of their memories about her.
Hello, I am Danny Moore, Leona's daughter, and I want to thank you all for coming to see you. I see a lot of familiar faces. I don't think I was exactly the daughter that my mother expected. She expected a sweet, compliant secretary, and instead she got a theatrical, passionate, nonconformist. But in many ways, be it nature or nurture, in a lot of ways we were alike. Many of the things that she modeled for me in her life, I try to continue in my life. If you see a need in your community that's not being met, you try and meet it if you can. That you have a responsibility to give as much back to your community, if not more, than you take from it. And you do the right thing specifically because it's the right thing, for no other reason than that. If you have something that someone else needs more than you give it to them. And so I'm happy that I can continue on her legacy in many ways, in a slightly different form, but the message goes forward. And I try and instill those same things in my daughter and my granddaughters and my one now great grandson. So as you remember my mom, think back, and when you can, give back in her memory.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I'm Leona's granddaughter, and she brought so much joy. That's the word that I always think of when I think of her. And I would like to invite everyone to take a moment to recall perhaps your most joyful memory or your sweetest memory. And just take a moment to sit with her spirit as we all honor her collectively. Last week, I was really struck out of the blue by a memory of going to Georgia, Betty Miller's beach house with her and Leona, and this very specific moment of childhood joy of being in the sun at the beach. And Georgia and I just getting pummeled by the waves, and Ern and Leona sitting back up watching us. And that's, I invite you all to find that. So if you would just close your eyes for a moment and sit and think of her. Thank you.
I'm Kelly Ikenberry. I'm Leona's daughter-in-law. Trudy McKennell, Leona's niece, wanted to be here today, but she couldn't be. She said these remembrances. Regrettably, I have very few moments shared with my Aunt Leona. Leona and Ernie and my two cousins were far away in exotic California, and I can count on one hand the number of visits I remember with them. The one thing that stands out to me about Leona was her giant smile, presented easily and often. But my mother, Leona's little sister, has a lifetime of memories with Leona. She shared just two from their childhood together. Leona was a wonderful big sister. Mary Jo, being just a year and a half younger than Leona, often wanted to be able to join her big sister in different activities and do what her big sister was allowed to do. Their mother would say, just wait until you're as old as Leona, then you can. Mary Jo didn't like that response because she realized she would never catch up to Leona's age. Another memory of Leona as sister was that Mary Jo got to go see the movie Gone with the Wind when it came out in 1939, but only with her big sister Leona as chaperone. This experience was especially memorable because it was a Sunday matinee, It was the only time they were ever allowed to go to a movie on a Sunday. This time they could because the movie was so long that it would have been too late to go to a weeknight showing.
Good afternoon. I'm Robert, Leona's son. Growing up, I always knew that I was loved unconditionally, and that was mostly from my mom. Leona Marie Dell was born on May 3rd, 1926 in McPherson, Kansas, daughter of Samuel Milton S.M. Dell and Miriam Winter Dell. She was the first of 3 children, followed in a couple years by Mary Jo, and almost 10 years after that by her brother Bob. For Leona, travels began early. The page on her baby book, titled Baby Goes Out, says, home from the hospital 8 days, to Missouri 2 weeks old, back to McPherson 3.5 weeks, to Nebraska 5 weeks old. She started her travels young, not even 3 months old, and she'd already visited 3 states. Leona spent her first few years in Marion, Kansas, where SM taught high school. She was proud that the family was going to move to the big city of McPherson just so that she could attend a real kindergarten at age 5. Leona spent the rest of her years in McPherson developing childhood friendships that would last a lifetime. Verna Larson and Roberta Crable were notable examples. She attended high school in Mac and graduated in 1944 in the midst of a world war. She started McPherson College while her dad, SM, was the dean of men. A new dean of women, Olivia Ikenberry, started that year as well. And Mom met and fell in love with a handsome young man named Ernie. They stayed together for the next 67 years until Ernie preceded Leona in death in 2013. Mom didn't talk about her early years much with me, at least as I recall. So I don't know how she felt about experiencing those times, but talking about the Depression and the Dust Bowl days. But they didn't mark her with any negative attributes. She was eternally cheerful, smiling, welcoming, encouraging, supporting, and generous. She was the essence of what I know as brethren Christian love. And she did the best to instill those values in me and my sister. And she practiced them daily with my dad, her many friends, and the community at large. In the summer of 2009, the Del Cullen Union honored Leona as one of the notable elders. I prepared this video that we saw earlier to be shown in her honor, and I mentioned in my introduction that there were 3 core things about Leona that first came to mind. 1 was her love of photography, 2 was her love of travel, and 3 was her affinity for meetings. I wouldn't say she loved meetings, but she definitely loved getting together with people. And the reason for those meetings was usually service, a way to inform, assist, or otherwise make people's lives better. From my earliest memory, and that was the theme that runs through her life and neatly summarizes Leona, she was love. From my earliest memories, I remember babysitters, often young college women or local girls from the church, who would come in the evening as Mom and Dad went out visiting, dancing, to church or college functions, or just to have time together. These early years were happy times for me. Mother was a stay-at-home mom, but that didn't mean we kids were cooped up inside. She was the opposite of a helicopter parent. Be in earshot of home or a neighbor, and that was good enough. From the orange grove at the end of the block to the schoolyard behind the house, or several blocks in any direction, our world felt vast. Mom and Dad gave me the freedom to have adventures, They fostered my independence and encouraged the love of adventures on my own. They sent me to Camp Laverne at about age 7 for my first venture away from home by myself. Maybe not completely successful, but I survived to a sleepover camp in Watts in central LA in 1968, to Washington, D.C. and New York City to learn about government with church groups. And we took trips together in the train, in the car, camping with a car company that my dad bought from Dean Hogan or maybe it was Orkheim, or to the cabin in Mount Baldy and the various national parks. We spent summers on significant trips thanks to Dad's profession as a teacher. He taught some summer school, but often we were off to Kansas or to visit the Dell family or to Liebrook Indian Mission or wherever else Grandpa and Grandma Ikenberry were ministering. They instilled Mom and Dad a love of nature by showing and doing. Even when my sister and I were not the most appreciative pupils or willing participants, Leona never focused much on accumulating things. She loved accumulating friends and experiences. We had a quarter share in the cabin at Mount Baldy. I thought it was a bit Spartan, but with only gravity-fed cold water and an outhouse for a bathroom. But Mom truly seemed to love her time there, where she could relax a bit and commune with the alpine air a mile above the smog of the valley. The cabin became a place for visiting relatives and friends and a traditional spot for Thanksgiving dinners. The cabin crammed to overflowing with joyous friends and relatives. As a child, I never thought of us as poor, but I sure knew we weren't wealthy. We didn't have a television until I was old enough to recognize that everybody else did. Hamburger helper and tuna noodle casserole were regular staples in our diet. Leona was a dutiful cook and had several favorite dishes, but no one would ever accuse her of being a pretentious or gourmet cook. She had other more important things to do with her time. 1971 marked 25 years together for Mom and Dad. At 19, I was in college and soon to marry and move away. Danny was in high school, and the family was in transition. In 1975, SM and Miriam Dell marked 50 years together, and the entire family came to McPherson to celebrate. I remember that with Mom and Dad. By this time, Leona and Ernie could spend more time traveling, and the decades of the 70s and the 80s were filled with travel and taking pictures and making memories. Both still actively working, they made time for trips, including to Japan, and in 1983 realized the dream of Dad's. They got to go back to China, where he was born, which had been closed up until then. Leona retired from the church in 1986, and that freed up more time for travel and more pictures. In the 90s, they took a cruise to Alaska and another one through the Panama Canal. Leona was really in her element. The things that Leona truly loved accumulating were photographs and memories and friends. Leona had started making new, fast friends as soon as she came to Laverne, and many of those lasted until her incapacity. And many of those friends are in this room today, thank you. Leona was slow to anger, and seldom did I see her cry. She didn't wear her heart on her sleeve. I think that this was somewhat generational, reflecting the stoicism of those who endured the Great Depression. But in Mom's case, she always wore a smile. I feel like she wore her heart on her face. I know Leona knew why she was here on this earth. It was to be a good wife and to rear children, but it was to be a part of the community. She wanted to contribute. She wanted to give back. She wanted to make others' lives better I think if you would have asked her, she would have said that she had a wonderful, rich, and blessed life. Growing up, I'm sure she saw many who didn't. For those who knew Mom in her prime, and that was probably up until about 10 years ago, I want you to remember her that way. Busy every day, in every way, whether it was getting together at the Village Inn for Friday breakfast with Mary Ann Quay and the other mostly female movers and shakers in Laverne, or taking photos of the new residents at Hillcrest for the monthly bulletin, or helping to organize a presentation at the Church of the Brethren, or preparing to take a trip to Hawaii. I remember Mom as always busy. Not frantic busy like Ernie, who sometimes was so busy with his own thoughts that he didn't really notice the other people around him. Leona was busy with purpose and joy. One of my favorite photos of Mom is of her lounging in the chair in the corner of the living room by the fireplace, her bare feet up on a footstool, an empty cup of coffee on the tray next to her, with a contented look at her face. The photo is undated, but probably from the 60s. I don't actually know the date or who took it, but I can envision that I had a film camera with a flash cube on top, and snapped a photo of her at leisure. She probably wouldn't have liked it particularly, but it caught her at a rare moment of rest. And that's the reason that I like it so much, because these moments were so rare. Although not never, because I caught another one 20 years later in the backyard patio. While working at the church, Leona had a plaque on her desk, but it wasn't her name. It read, Department of Sunshine and Rainbows. And then went on to say, hopes restored, spirits lifted, enthusiasm renewed. And that really does reflect how Leona felt and what she wanted to do. She wanted to spread sunshine and rainbows to everyone around.
All of your sharing filled me with all kinds of memories of Leona, and I'm sure it did for the rest of you. I invite you now to gather those memories up and join me in prayer. Gracious and loving God, we come in this time of mourning to give thanks for the life of Leona. We promise that those who mourn will find comfort. We know that life is filled with circles. We thank you today for this circle of love, of friends and family. We find ourselves in this circle today specifically because of Leona. We are connected because of her, for she was part of us and we are part of her. And so we come together to weave our sorrows and our joys, to hold as one our thanksgiving and our mourning. We give you thanks for her life, a life lived in service, a life lived in joy and friendship, a life of love for husband, family, and church, a life of unfailing positivity and welcome, a life of doing good and bringing joy. We thank you for her persistent and joyful living that constitutes 93 years of life. And we thank you for your grace of God, for your presence, for your deep and abiding love, especially in times of loss. And in this time, we fall back into your arms and relax into this moment. Embrace us with your peace, we pray. Amen. I share with you from the Beatitudes, Matthew 5, 1 through 12. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to speak, and he taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For the same way they persecuted the prophets who went before you. It is my great honor to be able to speak about Leona today. She is one of the giants of my personal life. Leona Dell was born in McPherson, Kansas in 1926. She went to McPherson College, where her father, as you heard, was the dean of men. She met Ernie Ikenberry, and they were married. Together, they had 2 children, Robert and Lindell, or Danny. Leona also had 2 grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren, and even 1 great-great-grandchild. You've heard from her family who she was as a mother, a grandmother, and a wife. After Ernie and Leona were married, Ernie got a doctorate in chemistry and started out working for Continental Oil Company until he joined the faculty here in town, Laverne College, in 1957. Leona spent the next 63 years of her life in Laverne. She carried many volunteer positions within the Laverne Church of the Brethren, and then she became the director of Christian education. And that's when I met Leona. I became the summer service worker in a program from the University of Laverne, and I was assigned to the Laverne Church of the Brethren, and Leona was my supervisor for the summer. And when the summer was over, I was hired for a half-time job as the youth director. I spent many hours a week for the next 3 years of my life with Leona, and she was a model for me. Leona loved the church and was made for the work that she did. She was intelligent and thoughtful. She was gregarious and fun-loving. She often planned the staff social gatherings and insisted that they happen. She was creative and reflective. She did calligraphy and note cards. Many of you have some of those. I remember that whenever we had a staff meeting, Leona would bring some kind of centerpiece to the room and make the area feel special and beautiful. Welcome was just embedded in her very soul. She could be up against a deadline, and if you walked into her office, you felt like you were the only thing she had going that whole day. She was a doer that could stop and be present. She was definitely an extrovert. She could walk up and talk to anyone, anywhere. And she seemed tireless to me. She gave countless hours to better the church, the city, and the world. Many programs that Leona had a hand in creating still exist in the Laverne Church of the Brethren. Plus, for 20 years, she was the American Secretary for the World Friendship Center in Hiroshima, Japan. She was highly ethical, and she expected that same behavior out of others. Deep at her core was a need to do the right thing. And if all that wasn't enough, I think Leona had this ability to really see people. When Leona died, I had someone tell me of her experience of Leona. This person said that when she was a small child, both of her parents sang in church choir. So Leona offered to sit with this young child during worship. This woman said to me, somehow Leona knew who I was, what kind of child I was, what interested me. And she came prepared with activities that suited me in order to keep me entertained for that hour-long worship. When I was with Leona, I felt seen and welcomed. But I think it goes even beyond that. Leona not only saw people, she had an ability to name their gifts. I think of it as Leona's superpower. She called out those gifts for the good of others. She paid attention. She was that person that knew what was happening in the visitation program, the children's Sunday school classes, at the college, in the city, at Hillcrest. Someone else said to me that Leona was the glue that connected the church, the city, and the college. After 3 years of working under Leona, I headed off to seminary with Leona Ikenberry as my role model for what life should look like in the church. In 2002, I moved back to Laverne and I became Leona's pastor. Life is filled with circles. She had been in a women's breakfast group with my mother several years before. The group was still going and Leona and others invited me to join. Leona was living at Hillcrest at the time. She and Ernie had moved to Hillcrest in 1990, which means that she lived here for 30 years of her life. I was so delighted to see that the woman I'd worked under and admired for 40 years was still the same woman. Leona would show up to our breakfast with that smile, one that covered her entire face and made even her eyes twinkle. She always had her camera in her hand just in case. She never went anywhere without it. She was Hillcrest official photographer, and she made those note cards from her photos and added her calligraphy skills and sold them at the Hillcrest thrift shop. Each month when our breakfast ended, Leona scurried off to some other commitment or activity. She was busy connecting, busy welcoming, busy making things run wherever she found herself. Leona lived 85 amazing years before dementia became her reality. And luckily for her, she didn't realize she was living her worst nightmare. But her core personality was so strong, her essence remained intact. When you visited her, she still wanted to be hospitable to you. She still seemed perpetually joyful. When I think of Leona Ikenberry, I think of what a blessing she was to all of us here in this room, to her family, her community, her church, her world. And I believe Leona would tell us that she was the one who was blessed. But that's the amazing truth about people who live their lives with that kind of generosity of spirit. As they bless the world, they find themselves blessed. I read the Beatitudes to you today, which comes from the Sermon on the Mount. Children chose this scripture because they said she loved to give other people joy. To be blessed is to invoke God's favor upon another. And that was Leona Ikenberry to the core of her being. She invoked God's favor and joy upon others every day. She was a blessing, and she was blessed. We have lost one of our giants, but her legacy cannot be extinguished. Her gifts, her sight, her love lives on in her family, here at Hillcrest, in our church family, in the World Friendship Center in Japan. Leona Del Ikenberry lived her life with such a generosity of spirit that she became a blessing. And blessed are you, friends and her family, for you knew her and loved her and were blessed by her. Amen.
Amen.
Let us sing together. Leona's family is eager to get a chance to greet you, so please stay after for a reception and time of fellowship. For our benediction today, I want to send you out with a blessing by Jan Richardson. In the leaving, in the letting go, let there be this to hold onto at the last, the enduring love, the persisting hope, the remembering of joy, the offering of gratitude, the receiving of grace, the blessing of peace. May we leave here blessed and become a blessing. Amen.
Of course I remember you. How are you? How is Dale?
Your hair looks so different. You look like you're about 40. Like, it's really short.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Good. Nice day is on. She's somebody that for me it's really hard to put into words. Yeah, very cool. Yeah. Yeah, appreciate the pictures too. Oh, thank you. Oh. I don't want to make contact. I was in college with your folks. Oh, really? This guy Paudell, professor. Hi, Paudell. I'm very glad to heard him there. I've been on the street with my daughter for many years. Here in Laverne. Okay. Your dad was the whole business. Where's
Right there, right, yes. That's Lisa, and then she has Sophia. Oh, okay, all right.
Nice to see you.
Leona in your house. Thank you very much for watching and for attending. Bye-bye.